I'm Victoria from schoolguide.co.uk, and today I'm here with Dr. Linda Mallory. Linda has over 25 years of experience as a teacher, a special needs coordinator and an educational psychologist. And today we're going to chat about a side of schooling which is at the other end of the seesaw to all those performance tables and the results and the A stars and the grades. We're going to talk about positive psychology and the idea of conscious schooling. So Linda, please tell me a little bit about your background, your very varied background, and the work that you do at the moment.
Yes, I started as a teacher 25 years ago in a little village school, and really enjoyed being a teacher and really loved that whole learning process, both as a teacher but also learning from children and how they learned. I wanted to go deeper into how children learn by being a special educational needs coordinator, and then decided I want to explore that even further by being an educational psychologist. But it's only since being a parent in the last 10 years that's raised my consciousness about that deeper side of learning, and not only what we do and how we do it, but why we learn in a certain way. So I've delved deeper into positive psychology and looked at how we can optimise our learning performance and how we can have better outcomes by focusing on the journey of learning. So it's only really since being a parent that I've asked deeper questions about not just the what and the how, but why we learn in certain ways.
Okay, so tell me about, there was kind of a light bulb moment for you, wasn't there, with your son Fred, when he was walking home from school one day. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yes, I mean, even though I have been in education for 25 years, when your child turns around and said, well, why do I have to go to school? It really brings out a lot of deeper issues about what schooling is, and also what, as a parent, you can contribute to that home school environment. And asking that question, you know, what's school all about? It really resonated with me about thinking, well, what am I as a parent? What do I do in that homeschool relationship? And it opened up questions about what is a good parent. So asking that question to both my children, you know, what is a good parent? Fred said somebody that tells the truth, that's honest, and Tom said somebody that tickles. And it was really interesting because it brought out a lot of internal work that I needed to do as a parent, instead of just the busyness of the day, thinking, what is it that my children really need?
Okay.
And they're both needing very different things, and I made that classic mistake of trying to give them what I thought they both needed, which was the same thing, when actually they needed very different things.
Okay.
So I delved deeper and looked at a lot of positive psychology books, the work of Martin Seligman and his research about looking at children's strengths, looking at the work of Carol Dweck about learnt helplessness and her work on mindset and having a growth mindset instead of a fixed mindset.
Okay.
And also looking at the work of Barbara Fredrickson on positivity and how we need to be very positive in our outlook instead of that fixed negative outlook. So I drew on all that and thought, well, what is it that my children are really needing? And it came down to some 5 basic principles about they need to be loved unconditionally, they need to be listened to and understood, their contributions need to be really valued, they need choice and freedom, and they need the opportunity to play. And those were the threads that were coming out of all the research that I was looking at in terms of positive psychology. And that's what I hope to give to my children as a parent, but also in the work that I do as an educational psychologist, really focusing on strengths, because if we focus on strengths, that helps the areas of need.
Okay.
So those are the 5 elements that I would work on.
Okay, so often schools talk about a home-school partnership and that we're very much working together as parents and schools, but it feels, you know, for me, my children get up in the morning, they go off to school, and sometimes I have no idea what they're doing between 9 and 3 when they're there. How can we forge a closer relationship with schools? We can be conscious as parents and be positive and instill good values within our children, but how can we link that with what is going on at school on a day-to-day basis?
It's a really great question, and I get it a lot when I work with parents that are finding it hard for their child's needs to be understood from a school perspective. And I also hear it from the school's perspective in finding it difficult to engage parents. So they're both finding it quite difficult to engage, and it's how we can facilitate that. There was a brilliant study by the parent support team that said that there were 60% of parents feeling that that teachers patronise and that they don't listen to what they have to say, and teachers feeling that parents are not listening. And it was the same percentage. It was around the 60%.
Oh, really? Okay.
So it's interesting. It's why is it that we're feeling the same way, both as a parent but also being in the education system.
Okay.
So my feeling is that we need to share the same language about the values of education. And if we share those values, and that if we understand what the values of parents are, and that parents understand what the values of schools are, then if we bring those two together, then the way that I feel passionately about how we can do that is the language that we use with children. So using positive language and looking at strengths rather than deficits. What I'm seeing in schools and when I work with parents is that children are getting labelled, and that schools are kind of hiding behind labels as a way of justifying the system that we're operating in with levels and grades and outcomes. But if we come together and just share what it is that our children are really needing, and if parents are open to that and saying, I feel my child needs this, and that schools are really listening, then it makes it a lot easier, because then we're sharing the same language. But asking that question, what does my child need? And getting schools to articulate what they can do to meet that need is important.
I know you've written a book called The Why Parent, and I guess at the very centre of that title is the question why. So are you suggesting that the language that we should be using is mainly around questions? It's mainly around saying, perhaps admitting that maybe we don't have the answers, but we have to start with the right questions, and the first question is what does my child need, and just being very open to that dialogue and exploring, basically.
Yes, I mean, questions for me are so important. It's the quality of the questions that we ask really impacts on the relationship that we have with ourselves, but also everybody around us. So the questions that we ask is about how we can connect with ourselves, but also how we can connect with others. So for me, encouraging children to ask questions is really important.
Like what?
So in a situation where there may be some inappropriate behaviour and a tantrum, asking the question, you know, what do you need, rather than directing a child to, you know, you need to go to bed. So asking a question, you know, what would feel okay, you know, what would be fair? What do you need to do so that tomorrow you're waking up ready for school? So that they're part of the problem solving. So that questions help that problem solving. So that it helps our children self-regulate, it helps them problem solve, it helps them become resilient, because they're solving the problem themselves rather than adults telling them what to do. Because we know how it feels in the workplace if we're told what to do. It doesn't feel comfortable. We're in the anxious, stressed state when we're constantly told what to do. But once we're part of the problem solving and engaged in that and setting goals and targets, then we're in a more relaxed state, and then we're solving the problem through choices, and that helps us resilient because we can then solve the problem in the future.
Okay. I guess I have this little voice in the back of my head that's going, I haven't got time to be sitting down and reasoning with my child and talking about what do you need. And I think one of the things that I love about your work and the conversations that we've had in the past and the concept of conscious schooling is the idea of trying to slow things down and be in the moment and not necessarily, I'm very guilty as a parent of thinking, gosh, I've got the school bag to get ready, the packed lunches, the this, the that, I've got so much to do. How can I stop and be in the moment of perhaps why my child is struggling with their homework or why they don't want to sit down and why they don't want to cooperate? And could you tell me a little bit about the benefit of if we do press pause, be in the moment, that actually maybe that will create more time for us as a family and enable us to solve problems in a better way.
Yes, and it goes back to those 5 needs that I mentioned earlier. Is if children feel that they're loved unconditionally, then there's less tantrums and less behaviour issues.
Okay.
If they feel that they're being listened to and understood, then as an adult, if somebody's really listening to you and really understanding, then there's less anxiety and less stress because you feel like somebody totally gets you.
Okay.
If a child feels that their contributions are being understood and valued, then again that reduces that anxiety and there's less behaviour issues and less tantrums.
Okay.
If they've got more choice and they feel they're part of that problem-solving approach, then they're engaged.
Okay.
And so there's more connection. And that builds up the relationship. And so there's going to be less arguments and less tantrums in the morning. They're going to know that actually it's really useful to get these things together because we're working as a team. And there's going to be more time to engage if you just know that these are the sequences, these are the routines in the morning to get out of the house.
Okay.
And that need for play. I'm also as guilty as yourself sometimes in the morning when our children are engaged in something that's so exciting.
Yeah.
And they're making a Lego kind of construction toy.
That happened in my house this morning.
Yeah.
Get ready for school, stop,
But there are ways of doing that in a conscious way and saying, I love what you've made. When I see that makes me feel so proud, and it's a way of engaging in the process.
Okay.
And saying what you've done is really important. However, we're a team and we need to get to school by a certain time and you need to see your friends and and it's looking at the value of what they've done.
Okay.
What you've done is really important.
Yeah.
However, we need so it's using that language around there is an impact on what they do.
Yeah.
And it's about making that impact of value.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Absolutely.
So you can take a photograph of it on an iPhone and say, is it okay if I look at this during the day and it'll remind me of the Lego that you made.
Okay.
And saying, well, also problem solving it and saying, well, is there a good time that we can finish that?
Right. Okay.
So asking a question back.
Yeah.
It also is a way of taking the stress out of the decision making.
Okay.
It's almost like we're delegating.
Yeah.
In a way.
Okay.
So they're part of that whole process.
Okay. And what would you say to people that might say, but they're 6? How can they be part of that? I have to tell them what to do, otherwise we're not going to get anywhere.
I hear that a lot, and there's a lot of research to suggest that we're underestimating our children's ability to problem solve.
Okay.
And that children at the age of 3 and 4 are able to use what's called metacognitive skills to not only understand what they're doing and how they're doing it, but also being able to articulate the strategy.
Okay.
So we need our children to be more strategic.
Okay.
That's what industry is saying, that we need our children to be.
Okay.
More entrepreneurial, being able to make choices, making decisions, to be more creative.
Yeah.
And what we're doing when we introduce that at the age of 3 and 4 is that we're helping our children feel competent and that they're enough.
Okay.
And instead of disenfranchising them by taking those decisions away, by telling them what to do,
Yes.
we're disempowering our children.
Okay.
And for me, what is the purpose of being a parent?
Mm-hmm.
And asking that question of ourselves, for me, the purpose of being a parent is to help them become independent problem solvers,
Okay.
to go out into the world, to be
Yes.
able to make choices.
Yes.
Because that's what life's about, is making choices and decisions.
Okay.
And if we can empower them
Yeah.
early on,
Yeah.
then we're setting that blueprint for
Okay.
them.
I think that's really interesting. I mean, one of the things that also I've taken from your work is about trying to reduce stress. And for me as a parent, sometimes my stress levels go up because I feel like I have to have all the answers. I have to solve all the problems. I have to be directing them and telling them what to do. And recently I've been trying a little bit more to be conscious, to try, to be in the moment and to share problem solving with them. And it does actually reduce my stress levels, which reduces the stress in the whole environment, and I think while many parents want their children to be happy and successful at school, a lot of parents I talk to would like to reduce what happens in the school run period in the morning and to make that calmer and that more successful. So
Yes.
I'm just trying to say that actually I agree, and I found firsthand that by sharing problems it reduces all the stress and makes sends your children off to school in a better frame of mind for learning.
Yes, and going back to what you were saying as well about, well, I haven't got time to do that. Well, ironically, what it does, I know it's counterintuitive, but the time that you spend by asking that question,
Okay.
it comes back tenfold, because children are in that frame of mind that they're not stressed and they're less anxious.
Yeah.
Classic one is when you're on the phone and you're talking to somebody and they're wanting your attention.
Yeah.
And, that takes 10 minutes to try and calm that down, when actually just saying, what you have to say is really important, but I need to finish this conversation,
Right.
is enough for them to feel valued, and that I will speak to you when I've had, finished this conversation, and I will listen to exactly everything that you have to say. It's just a way of doing it that's respectful, and that they know that what they have to say is valued and important.
Yeah. Okay.
And that doesn't take that much time. It takes 10 seconds to do that.
Yeah.
But sometimes parents will say, well, that takes a long time to negotiate and to compromise and I'm not talking about being liberal and always compromising everything, because there are some situations where, particularly in health and safety situations, you can't compromise.
No.
And you can't have a discussion that's very democratic.
Okay. Yeah.
However, it's a practice that we can just get into, to just be more compassionate and more conscious about what we say and what we do.
Okay. And in terms of schooling itself, there's, I mean, we're not saying that results and the end result isn't important. We all know it is. In the modern world, our children need to have a good handful of GCSEs to kind of go out into the world. We have responsibility as parents to get them, as far as we can educationally. You're not saying that results aren't important, but you're kind of suggesting that we might just not always be looking at what is the next level.
Yes.
What's the next step? I think you said in your book, no child ever, when asked what they like most about school, is getting to level 5 or this grade in GCSE. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yes. For me, going back to the principles of schooling is, what do we want our children to experience as a result of being at primary school or at secondary school?
Okay.
What do we want them to believe about themselves?
Okay.
From that experience of primary and secondary schools. And for me, when I work with children and parents, what they want is to be happy, to be well-rounded, to be balanced individuals, so that they can go out into the world and do whatever job it is that they want to do, to have a career or to be an entrepreneur, to have a business, whatever it is that they choose to be. If you look at the qualities of anybody that's good and gone to the top in their particular field, they would say that, making mistakes, they would say that not necessarily always getting the grade or the outcome that you're expecting.
Yeah.
That it's having strategies to be able to cope with not necessarily failure, but the journey.
Okay.
And having that spirit of lifelong learning
Okay.
is the thing that I would say that children are needing at the moment.
Yeah.
And that the outcome comes from that spirit of lifelong learning,
Yeah.
from that spirit of curiosity, from
Yeah.
that spirit of being able to ask lots of questions and being able to go out and find the solution.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it's about what children need to believe about, schooling. And what I'm seeing is children that burn out
Okay.
from being pushed, from having that expectation of perfection,
Yeah.
and they don't want to carry on that journey anymore once they've
Okay.
got to that end point that they
Right.
feel that's enough.
Okay.
And for me, the success in education is that always wanting to learn,
Yes.
is that that you wake up and think, I want to learn something new today.
Right. Okay.
And that for me is the success of an education system,
Okay.
not results. Although the results are useful because they're a vehicle to get to maybe
Yeah.
places that you want to get to.
Absolutely.
But for me, it's what do you feel like as a learner is the joy of learning.
Okay.
And the derivation of the word education in itself is about drawing out from what's within. So we need to help education promote finding out what it is that children need to do in their life. What is it that they need to do to fulfill their purpose?
Yeah.
And outcomes are useful to do that, but it's having a more holistic way of looking at education.
Okay. Final question. I know we've talked about the way that sometimes parents lack confidence in their own parenting skills and abilities. We don't live in the close communities that we used to when we used to be able to refer to aunties and cousins and sisters that are all around. We're kind of quite removed from our extended families. We tend to kind of be told by experts all the time, these are the things that we should be doing, and we've lost confidence in our own ability to just parent our children and to guide our children through the education system. I'm talking to you today because I think you're a fabulous expert, so we're not saying that we shouldn't be listening to experts, but what do you say to parents about just having a core belief in your own confidence as a parent?
Yes, that resonates with me because I'd lost my confidence as a parent. My first child, I had the health visitor ring the door and I was hiding behind the sofa because I didn't want to be told I was doing it wrong.
Right, okay.
And that's how I felt.
Okay.
So we all have that experience sometimes of being told, that things are not quite right and it knocked my confidence and that was the whole reason why I set up the Why Parent, was to help parents feel more confident in their own innate ability to know their child. Parents know their children better than anybody else.
Right, I agree.
And sometimes I hear professionals telling parents what to do and how to do it.
Okay.
And I want to move away from that and say, the why is really important.
Yeah.
It's about well-being, happiness, and you, and that's the core of the why for me.
Okay.
It's how can we be better at it than we were the day before?
Okay.
That was the question that I was asking myself.
Okay.
Instead of saying, why am I doing it wrong?
Yeah.
Or why is that parent doing it better than me?
Right. Yes.
And there is a lot of competition that I'm seeing. The parents, whether it's at the school gates or whether it's at school activities or out of school activities that children are doing, competition is not the key for me.
No.
For me, it's about collaboration and cooperation and compassion.
Yeah.
And if we can show more compassion to our children and compassion to ourselves as parents,
Okay.
and actually give ourselves permission that it's okay that maybe we have shouted at our child and maybe that makes us feel really guilty. However, it's what have we learned from that experience is the most important thing. And it is a journey, and not beating ourselves up all the time about I should be doing this, I should be doing that, because should implies guilt.
Right.
And we need to take guilt away from our parenting because that is a stressful, anxiety-provoking state.
Yeah.
We need to be in a more joyful, compassionate state because our children realise that and match our state.
Right.
They,
Okay.
They're so tuned in to
Yeah.
whatever.
They mirror us. Yeah.
Totally.
Okay.
And a study that was done in America by Ellen Galinsky, and she looked at working parents in America.
Okay.
And she asked children, you know, what is it that you want from parents? And it wasn't more time. It was they wanted their parents to be less stressed
Okay.
and less anxious. And we need to be the change that we need to see.
Okay.
And it's that Gandhi quote, isn't it?
Yeah.
Be the change we need to see.
Okay.
So if we're calm and less stressed, then our children will be calm and less stressed, and they will perform better,
Okay.
and their outcomes will be better.
Right. Fantastic. Linda, it's an absolute pleasure to talk to you
Thank
as
you.
always. I know we're going to connect again over the next few months. And in our next vlog, you're going to help us to talk about some strategies that we can both use as parents.
Brilliant, thank you.
And that our children can use within the school environment to be more conscious, to be more in the moment, to be more questioning, and crucially, be happier.
Brilliant, thank you.
Thank you.